My name is Betsy Driver. I'm an independent intersex activist in the United States. I've been doing intersex activism since 2001. I started the first online international intersex forum for people with intersex variations to meet each other. It was truly transforming to a lot of people. In fact, that work I did in 2001 gave birth to many of the intersex activists you learn today. The reason I started this organization was because I was struggling with my own intersex variations, having been born in the mid-60s with a body that did not fit into standard medicalized definitions of male or female. Horrible surgeries were done to me as a child, including the complete amputation of my clitoris when I was 8 months old. When I hit my mid-30s, it became a matter of survival. I needed to find somebody else that was like me. And the internet was young, and I thought, I'm going to put something online and see what turns up. It really, truly gave birth to the intersex movement in many ways, as well as brought light to the personal side of our intersex stories. It helps break the shame and the secrecy that so many of us grew up with, and the lies we grew up with. And it's not necessarily our parents' lies that we grew up with. However, they were often willing or unwilling accomplices to those lies. They were told by the very doctors they sought out to treat our bodies that we were either the only ones like us, and that we should never tell anybody else about our queer bodies and how we were born. And of course, anytime you have lies in a family, bad things will probably happen over time, and in fact they do happen, and they still happen. Intersex, it's not nearly as complicated as it seems. On the medical side, it means being born with a body that falls outside of the standard medical or female definitions of what falls into that binary sex designation. You know, the medicalized definition of that is a baby girl is born with a vagina, and when I say baby girl, I mean an XX baby girl is born with a vagina, and an XY baby boy is born with a penis and testicles. However, sometimes you'll have a baby girl that's born with a large clitoris, or you'll have a XY person born looking very physically female at birth, because their body does not respond to testosterone. There are also genetic variations. You might have somebody who is XXXY or XXXY. There's several different varieties. It's somewhere, I think, around 30 different varieties of intersex that have been identified so far. Some of them are genetic in nature. Some of them are not. Some of them just happen, and they get discovered. Some of the babies born with an intersex variations are identified at birth. Some of them are not identified until puberty. Some of them might not be identified until adulthood, and some people are never identified. They just grow up knowing that they have a body that does not respond like their friends are doing, say through puberty or through young adulthood, and have other issues. Sometimes they'll seek medical care for another problem, and it gets discovered. So there's a lot of different ways that it can be found in nature. From the social side, many of us define intersex not from the medicalized side, because we find that to be pathologizing, and it makes us a medical oddity. We look at it instead as the lived experience of being born into a body that does not meet society's expectations of what they believe male or female should be. It's important to note that while some people with intersex variations identify as intersex, intersex is generally not thought of as a gender. However, many people do. We identify as male, we identify as female, we identify cisgender, we identify trans, we identify intersex. The one thing, the intersectionality and all that, is that we all were born with a body that fell outside of what was expected. We're gay, we're lesbian, we're bi, we're trans, we're everything in that alphabet that people think about when they think LGBTI, and we're not in that alphabet sometimes, other than the I. It can affect mental health very much so, And the reason for that is very often the psychosocial side of us are not treated. We're considered to be a medical issue, and our mental health is often ignored. It causes very big problems with people. Many of those problems are, as I mentioned, the shame and the secrets about our bodies and how we were born. Many of us are subjected to surgeries without our consent. You might have somebody with AIS who looks very female at birth but may have gonadal tissue, and that gonadal tissue is often removed under the guise of it being cancerous, or they'll call it a hernia, when it's not. It's actually functioning gonadal tissue that produces hormones that are very healthy for a person. Then they have to take hormones the rest of their life. They have to do hormone replacement. So there's a lot of different issues. The biggest one that we as intersex advocates probably work towards is eliminating non-consensual surgeries done on children, often at an early age. We're not against surgeries. We just believe that the person who owns that body, who is living in that body, should be the person to participate in whether or not that body should be cut to fit standard male or female definitions of what someone's body should look like. As I'm here in Sydney, and I've been attending some of the Mardi Gras events, I took note with both a bit of horror and embarrassment and shame that IVF companies are one of the big sponsors of many of the events here. And in fact, one of them even says in their marketing, creating LGBTI families. Part of the problem with that is intersex variations that can be identified through pre-implementation genetics are often eliminated. Routinely eliminated at the request of the family. We don't want a child with a body that is not standard male or female. There's quite a bit of homophobia and transphobia in that decision because it almost comes down to sex selection in a way as well. It also tells those with intersex variations that their lives are not worthy, that their lives are only worth being eliminated before anything happens in a petri dish. And to take money from an organization that actively does work to eliminate intersex variations, I think is very problematic for any queer organization or any pride organization out there.